Being after 7 o'clock, the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Orleans is hereby called to order. Present tonight are myself, Michael P. Marnick, the chair this year. Also regular members, Rolf Soderstrom, Beth McCartney, William McCarthy. Associate members, Peter Jablin and Jerry Mulligan. Excused is Matthew Cole. It is in order to consider the minutes of the meeting of October 1st, 2014, which was the last regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the minutes have been circulated, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Jablin seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. There's one item of business tonight, and that is the application of 321 R&R LLC, case number 1994. Is everyone present to proceed?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Then, case number 1994 is the application of 321 R&R LLC for special permit as set forth in General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6, under Orleans zoning bylaws, Sections 164-3C2 and 164-8 and 164-34B3 to alter a pre-existing non-conforming commercial structure extending commercial use into an adjoining district and reducing parking spaces based upon special circumstances, and in the alternative seeks a variance. The property is located at 3 Nell Way, Orleans, map number 46, parcel 19. This case was called without a hearing on October 15th and continued until today. Let the record reflect that in view of the continuance, the abutters were re-notified by first-class mail on October 20th, 2014. Are any members of the board have had communication with the applicant or otherwise are aware of any circumstances which would disqualify them by reason of a conflict of interest? No positive response. Then I declare that the board is indifferent, and we will hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. My name is Dwayne Landreth. I'm an attorney with Lattanzi, Spalding & Landreth, and I'm here representing the Ruggs, who are the owners of the property and the business. And with me is Marja McGrail, who works with David McNevich and worked with David McNevich in the evolution of the site plan. And at some point, with the chair's permission, I'd like to ask the chair to call upon her to explain the site plan and the considerations that went into the design of it. This zoning relief, which the chairman referred to, is to increase the storage space in aid of the wholesale business that's carried on here along with the retail business. It's to improve and upgrade the exterior of the premises as well. The site is located at the intersection of Bakers Pond Road with Nell Lane and is on the immediate south side of Nell Lane, heading into what we used to call the so-called underground mall, south of Route 6A. This is a corner lot, and it has 110 feet of frontage on Nell, 240 feet of frontage on Bakers Pond Road, though it's not oriented toward Bakers Pond Road. It is a truncated parallelogram with its southeastern corner lopped off. The lot has just a little bit more than 24,000 square feet of upland, about 0.55 acres. It was created by a subdivision sometime shortly before September 1984 And you have a copy of the land court plan which shows it. It's Land Court Plan 15082, and my recollection is that it's Lot 23 on that plan. Just so we're clear, because it'll come to the issue of pre-existing non-conforming structure, when you eventually obtain from the land court an approved division of registered land like this, it is always preceded by an approval by the local planning board of the subdivision, and the land court then feeds it into its bureaucracy, and ultimately, after every surveying question is answered and every conceivable issue that might arise is resolved, it comes out and is then recorded as this plan. The point there is that the subdivision approval predated, I believe it predated August 31st, 1984 by many months. And that becomes important, as I'll get into a little bit later on, to the issue of pre-existing non-conforming. You have a copy of the plan prepared by Coastal Engineering dated 9/9/14, which is titled Plan Showing Proposed Building Addition and Site Improvements, and it shows additional data on it. At the northeast corner of the lot, the elevation is 34 feet. At the southwest corner on the hill on Baker's Pond Road, the elevation is 50 feet. And at the corner of the boundary, at the back of the lot, which is where the cutoff point in the back, where the boundary marker is 72 feet. My point is that the front two-thirds of the lot is relatively level, but after that the lot slopes first gradually to the south, and the back one-third slopes steeply to the southeast. And as a result of this topographic feature, the back one-fifth of the lot is unusable and will be supported by a new retaining wall. Another feature to note with regard to this lot is that the front 60% is in the general business zone, and the rest is in the affordable housing residential district. The abutter to the south is the OPA subdivision, which is considerably elevated above this property and thus well insulated from it. The present improvements on the site, the existing Napa Auto Parts store building, which is 48 feet wide by 80 feet deep, it is dimensionally non-conforming inasmuch as it's set back 16.7 feet from Nell Way, rather than the required 25 feet. This dimension is not going to change. In other words, there's going to be nor will there be anything built over it. There's no intensification of this nonconformity. The expansion is on the opposite side of the lot. The building is currently on a slab at 35.6 feet elevation, and the interior of the structure has 1,221 square feet of retail space at the front, with the remaining 2,619 square feet devoted to storage space and the loading and dispatch of service vans employed to deliver the inventoried items to the network of local automotive end users serviced by this business. The exterior of this building and the parking arrangements are far from ideal. According to the old documents in the file, when the structure was first built, it was oriented toward Baker's Pond Road and was accessed from the 30-foot wide curb cut on Baker's Pond Road, which is shown crosshatched there. It's about two-thirds back on the existing building, which is outlined in the bright yellow. The structure was constructed in 1974 and was built on a much larger lot than it was. As I say, the lot was ultimately created in 1984. There's an old site plan in the file that showed that the parking in 1974 was arrayed along the front of Baker's Pond Road, with some of it up in the northeast corner of the property. It was, at that point in time, and always has been, an auto parts store. Now, as we saw from the land court plan that I referred to, at the time that Nell Way was laid out, the only other structure, it was the only structure on that part of the subdivision. To the east of this subdivision is the continuation that goes into the underground mall. This is only what's shown on that land court plan is only a part of the eventual subdivision. What appears to have happened since 1974 is, as the neighborhood developed, was the gradual orientation of the retail business away from Baker's Pond Road in favor of Nell Way. Along with that, patrons commenced the park between Nell Way and the front on Nell's Way, and the back and east side of the property was used for overflow parking, is used, and in support of the developing wholesale business. From 1974 forward, formal planning action has been required by the changes, and the changes that have been made have been for building permits that either put in doors or windows or move things around. But as I say, no formal planning action has been taken with regard to this lot since 1974. As a result, the existing site plan is inadequate for several reasons. First, cars parked on the front, right off of Nell's Way, need to back out onto Nell's Way, interfering with the through traffic going in. In fact, if you look at the layout, you'll see that the cars actually, to some extent, park on the layout of Nell's Way. They don't park on the property completely. For those accessing on the east side of the front of the lot, there's no defined curb cut for access and egress. It's just all one pavement with no differentiation. There's lack of an all-weather surface on the side and back of the site. There's poor drainage on the lot. There's no clear-cut traffic circulation pattern on the site. And the Baker's Pond curb cut is within 60 feet of the Nell Way intersection with Baker Pond Road. So to make visual proof of these points, I'm going to provide you some photographs. They basically approach the building from the northeast and then circle around in a counterclockwise fashion. This was on a Saturday. It was on a Saturday after a substantial rain that had a puddle that ran the complete width of the back of the building. And it will show the circumstances. So, for the record, I'm sure you've all had a site visit, but those are good for reference. So, what is proposed to be done is depicted on the coastal engineering site plan already referred to. Additionally, you have in the record a set of building plans that were prepared. They're A1, A2, and A3 that were prepared by Zibrat and McCarthy designers. The first page, A1, shows the north and south elevation. Note that the proposed addition has a gable end perpendicular to the gable roof, so that the change in the of the silhouette of the building from its north elevation and from its south elevation is that there's a roof. The back gable is at right angles, if you will, to the front gable, so that the silhouette will change. A1 also shows a section across the addition and a detail of the support columns on the left-hand side for structural purposes. A2 is the east and west elevations and shows what they will look like. And note that the additions, the exterior facade will be faced with vinyl siding that matches the existing vinyl siding, and the 8-inch clapboard exposed on the pediment to match the existing front and rear pediments. The A3 plan shows the existing floor plan, and again, I noted for you that there's 1,221 feet. There's an existing 3,840 feet of storage and working area, and this is 1,920 square feet of unheated storage to be added to that. The back wall of the building will remain, the existing building will remain in place. And of course, this storage space services both the retail area, but also services the wholesale that is accomplished by means of vans that deliver. So the new area is 48 feet wide to match the existing and 40 feet deep. It'll increase the storage capacity from 2,619 feet to 4,539 feet, an increase of about 70%. Of course, there is some space in those areas that's used for other than storage necessarily, since it's an employee area. But that's a kind of a rough calculation. It'll enhance their ability to store things by 70%. It will also, Mr. Rugg informed me today, enable them to service their existing business, because right now they're tripping over themselves with regard to the storage and all the other functions that need to take place. The expansion will not increase the volume of retail business necessarily, but it'll increase the likelihood that a particular item would be in stock for a retail customer. And with the Chair's permission, as I said before, I'd like to ask Tarja to explain the site plan and what considerations went into it in order to serve this business and to increase its capacity to serve the area. And after her presentation, I would just simply request that the Chair recognize me so I can get into the legal aspects that have to be met.
Very well. Ma'am, you may proceed.
Sure. My name is Tarja McGrail from Coastal Engineering. Do you mind if I get up to kind of walk you through the plan?
Whatever is the most illustrative way of demonstrating it for us.
All right, so one of the key points of the redesign is to remove the vehicles that are currently parking in front of the store and encroaching into Nell Way. This is going to be a huge safety improvement for the site, and that would be removing this area that I currently have crosshatched in green. So this area will go from current use as vehicle parking to more of a greenscape and plantings. With the parking spaces removed from this location, we are going to propose a new circulation on the site that will give drivers a more directed routine around the site, which will improve safety as well for everyone. What that will do is everyone will enter the site from the curb cut on Nell Way, which will be more well defined with the removal of these parking spaces. As you pull in, there's going to be angled parking off to your left-hand side, and there will also be a handicap parking space with accessible pathway right to the front of the store. So this is a big improvement for everybody. Customers will be encouraged to park immediately on these angled spots and go into the store, and as they leave, they'll back out and actually pull around the back of the building and egress the site from a proposed curb cut that enters onto Baker's Pond Road. And as you come around the building, just to finish kind of the tour around the building, we have employee parking spaces at the rear. Vehicles that service the store and the delivery fleet will actually pull around and come right up to the loading bay on this side of the building. So the new benefit of the site is the removal of the parking out front, accessibility along the side, and designated parking spaces, and then the new one-way orientation around the site, which will direct vehicles out onto Bakers Pond Road. In order to maintain the one-way traffic flow around the site, we've oriented the egress access at an angle to discourage drivers on Bakers Pond Road from entering the site in this location. As was mentioned previously, there's currently a curb cut in this location. This curb cut is within 60 feet of the current Nell Way access. To improve safety, we've improved the distance between the two curb cuts to greater than 100 feet, so this will be a great improvement. Another aspect to having the more angled direction of this egress drive is also to work with, there's an existing utility pole in this corner, and then also the topography starts to climb quickly going up the hill. So by coming in this location, we can maintain grades at this property line and access Bakers Pond at a reasonable slope, and also get into the site at a reasonable slope. As I mentioned, one of the benefits is going to be the removal of this curb cut as well. Some of the larger delivery trucks that are making deliveries of materials that are stored at the building are actually, when there's cars parked out front, they may have to bypass the site, go up to the next intersection on Bakers Pond Road to turn around so they can then drive down Bakers Pond and pull in so they're parallel with the building. By closing off this curb cut and also discouraging the entrance at this location, now trucks will be encouraged to do the proper turn movement, which will be to pull in, come down or actually enter Bakers Pond from 6A, come into Nell's Way, and then they'll just back up alongside the building. So it'll be a much easier maneuver for them without the cars parked out front. One of the major considerations of the site is just how narrow the site is, which was difficult for design, and also working with the topography on the back half of the lot, or a third of the lot. As a result of the topography, to get this amount of parking spaces oriented in a way that makes them accessible to both the employees and also the customers, we did have to propose a wall on the back side to try to retain the grade. So that was the topography in the narrow site. That was definitely one of the areas where there was many design iterations to try to get all of the parking to work on the site. Because of the narrow site, we also had, we spent a lot of time looking at how to improve the buffers along the property line. And in this location on the west side of the building, we were able to work with the existing width of the building and the width of the property and maintain the buffer that is currently there at 6 feet. But on the east side, by angling the parking and creating the one-way maneuvering around the site, we were actually able to increase the existing buffer to the adjacent property to 3.5 feet from 0. So this was a benefit. One of the more community benefits of the proposed improvements is going to be the drainage. I know you saw in the pictures some large puddles. There's also a lot of runoff going off-site, particularly in the area where it's sloping down onto Nell's Way. So this is all taken care of by the proposed design. And also the proposed design is a new Title V septic. So I can take any questions if there's any more detail.
Let me see if I understand this. Now, the delivery trucks all congregate on the westerly side of the building.
Yeah.
Do they drive out then? Or do they back down to go out the new curb cut?
No,
The new configured curb cut.
they will exit here.
They're going to go right out Nell's Way. So
They could.
it's one clockwise motion of
Clockwise
traffic.
movement around the entire facility, but customers would be oriented to exit from the main egress point.
Right. Mr. Jablon?
Thank you. I notice in the plans, there's one commode, and that will remain just one commode within the facility. The current septic system is underneath the proposed site of the addition, and that will be removed, and then the new septic system will be to the rear of it. The other facilities, leaching chambers, are designed to handle such surface waters as in the photographs. Is that correct, to the rear?
Yeah, I can explain all of the drainage and the septic locations for you. I'll start with the septic system. Septic's
Yeah.
proposed on the west side of the building, and that's going to meet Title V as far
Okay,
as meeting
all
the
right.
10-foot separation to the existing building slab. The system is size per design flow, Title V design flow requirements based on square footage of retail area at the store. And the system design is for almost 300 gallons per day, which should be more than sufficient for the amount of employees that are actually there. As far as drainage, the minimum separation for drainage to septic leaching is 25 feet. And you will see that in the location here on the northeast side of the site, we have one subsurface
Okay.
leaching basin. There is a second further south.
Okay, I got it.
proposed addition. And then you'll notice that the catch basin, because of the location of septic, the catch basin located on the northwest side of the property is actually rooting across the front, and it's going to be tied into the system proposed.
I see. I got it. Thanks.
All of it's designed for Orleans codes as far as the drainage for the 25-year storm, so we'll be capturing and treating on site. A huge difference from current conditions.
How many employees are there?
There are 8 employees.
Okay, so there's 2 and 7 parking spaces?
Well, there's 13 parking spaces proposed in all. So there's, based on looking at the retail space, there is a minimum requirement of, we're going to use a requirement of 5 parking spaces for customer service. And then the addition of the 8 employees brings us to 13. So there are 7 at the rear here.
Okay.
And then there's 1 that they park on the end of this group.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further questions on this part of the presentation?
Just curiously, will it be paved all around?
Yes,
I noticed
yes, the whole site's going to be paved and improved.
a photo from the back with the puddles, and you'll be able to accommodate all that runoff that'll
Yes,
come down the hill?
it's all based on the roof, impervious area from the roof and also from the pavement.
Would there be a do not enter sign for that one-way intended exit off onto Baker's Pond? You were talking about discouraging from,
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not currently shown on the plan, but
That makes
Yeah,
absolute sense. Yeah,
absolute sense.
we hadn't discussed that
you know,
yet.
have collisions that,
Yeah.
they'll need parts, but it's not the way you want to get
No.
business, I'm sure.
So this would be a do not enter from the, to the southerly of the proposed curb cut as you come down the Bakers Pond Road hill. And certainly that's an acceptable condition to have some sort of a signage of that nature. It might not necessarily be within the layout, on the property, but it would be, without the traveled surface of Bakers Pond Road, wherever it's most visible.
Are you distinguishing from traffic that would come up Baker's Pond and then?
Well, you could have one on either side. I mean, it wouldn't, there would be space to do it on both sides. But again, that's a condition that's more than acceptable.
No other questions?
How high is the rear retaining wall?
Um,
48, yeah, is that 48, am I reading it
Yeah.
right?
So on the southeast corner,
Yeah.
I believe it's close to 14 feet. We're going from elevation 30, 8 plus up to elevation 15 feet.
Yeah.
And then it's going to step down as we head further to the west, where it becomes eventually flush with grade.
It's flush with grade at Baker's Pond Road.
It's located 10 feet off of the property line, and as it makes the turn and heads towards where you start to round to go out through the curb cut, it's down at grade. It catches grade there.
Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Yeah, now, Mr. Landis, you're going to tell us what you need for
Yes,
relief from us?
Mr. Chairman. First, I think that it would be useful to just take a quick look at the landscaping plan. I gave you a landscaping plan when I received it, which was, I believe, sometime last week. I got it in as soon as I could, and I delivered it to the clerk who emailed it around.
And then let the record reflect that the landscape plan dated October 30th, 2014 is part of the record.
So as far as details that I'd like to emphasize, you will note that the front area is going to be crushed stone, where it currently is just concrete or macadam, and that it will have some Japanese hollies and some Halloran yews spread out there. These are all relatively low maintenance type plants that will grow quickly. There's also a Bradford pear in the northeast corner and 3 Bradford pears that line the Bakers Pond Road up to the proposed curb cut. And then there's a plant with the delightful name Skimmia, I believe, which are low-growing plants. And of course, above the retaining wall will be green space. So what I did, and I mean it's kind of a crude thing, but I've colored in the green to give you a sense of what's going on, and then also showed you where the utility pole was that Harry referred to on this, and I'll just hand it in as a for whatever use it is. Now, the legal argument is there really are 2 general areas here which require relief. The first is relatively straightforward. A special permit is required on 3 bases. 1, it's required to alter or extend a pre-existing non-conforming commercial structure as per 164C2. The standard for which is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. A special permit is also required under 164-8, which provides that when a lot is in 2 districts, a use permitted on one portion can be extended in the other district on a special permit. And it's a usual special permit. And in this case, in my opinion, it would draw in the commercial regulations and as well as the general criteria for special permit. Also, a special permit is sought because the section governing parking, 164-34, has no direct requirement for evaluating the parking that's necessary for the structure. So as Tari explained, the calculation was done to take, well, okay, what do you need to service the retail space? Well, that's easy. The parking table says for each 250 square feet, you need 1 parking space. There's 1,221 square feet. You round that up to 5, so there's 5. The other calculation, since it relates to something that is more akin to a storage area, is the maximum employee count that's on the building, on the site at any one time, and that's 8. So as a result, it was designed around 13 spaces. And in order to if you will, bless that kind of parking calculation, I thought a special permit was appropriate. Since this is a commercial establishment, as I say, we look at both sets of criteria for it. The other area where relief is required is for the design of the parking lot. As a general principle, the section is intended to apply to new projects, and that is prospectively. In 16434A2, in fact, says none of the off-street parking facilities shall be required for any existing building or use, unless such building or use shall be enlarged, in which case the provisions of this chapter shall apply only to the enlarged portion of the building or use. So that says that the applicant is entitled to his existing use parking facilities, if you will, and has to provide for whatever parking need is created by the expansion. And now it's a little bit odd because there's not going to be any increase in the number of employees. There's 8 employees now, there's 8 employees then. So the formulation is kind of difficult to apply in this situation based upon the calibration. If the board, by special permit, agrees that the maximum spaces the employee count is the right measure, then the parking requirements are not increasing, and under the bylaw, there's been no expansion requiring additional parking facilities. Under that interpretation, the board would not apply the prospective requirements for parking lot design. Okay. To cover all the bases, we applied for a variance in the alternative, and I'm prepared to make that case, and we need not face that at this point in time. But the 3 design requirements that we were unable to meet are: 1, a parking area or any part of the driveway shall not be within 10 feet of a property line. And that's not the case with regard to the parking areas that are along the east side and the paved area which is along the west side. This is an existing nonconformity, of course, based upon what's going on the lot right now. Even though that grew like topsy. As I say, no one ever blessed that. The second parking relief is that the parking area should be no closer to the building than 10 feet. This can't be achieved on the south or east sides of the building because there's a driveway on the back and of course driveway along the side of the building. So there's no 10-foot buffer as is contemplated around the building. This is also not new news. It's an existing nonconformity. Finally, as Tarja pointed out, there's a driveway that crosses the buffer zone in the on the west side of the lot, 2/3 back, which does not come across at a right angle as it is required by the bylaw. That egress onto Baker's Pond Road is angled to the north for reasons she explained. So the board can decide that varying these design criteria under these circumstances does not require a variance, or it does require a variance, and at the proper time I'll address the variance requirements. So with regard to special permits, first I think it's useful to look at the general requirements because I intend to go through them one by one. The other ones I intend to highlight because they're covered in the paper that you have. And some of I more or less ignored those that are not applicable to save us a little bit of time. As far as adequacy of the size of the site for the proposed use, this use has been in existence since 1974 in this building, and by means of the retaining wall, the usable space is going to be increased by about 4,500 feet, and that's my own rough calculation. But you can see if you compare the pictures and the site plan that a great deal of additional space is going to be created for the lot by means of the retaining wall. Suitability of the site, well, the use is a commercial in a GB zone. Because of the vegetation and the great difference in elevation, the site is screened from the subdivision behind it. This is in the uses that are around this are in some cases very similar, such as the auto repair, the auto detailing, the car wash, and then the other uses, which tend to be those uses that are across Nell Way, are not going to be harmed by this, and I submit have not been harmed by it. On the contrary, I think that they'll be enhanced by it because of the improved appearance of the lot. With regard to traffic safety and traffic impact and safety, this is a great improvement on existing conditions. Eliminates those backing movements from the customers onto Nell Way. It provides a rational traffic pattern for retail customers and for the dispatch and delivery of products. The impact on neighborhood visual character, the enlargement materials match the existing materials. The Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District reviewed this plan and approved of it, and they did put their stamp by means of creating the gable end in the back to match the gable end in the front. The elimination of the parking in the front allows for green space and flanking Baker's Pond Road, as I indicated, our plantings. So the appearance of the site, both on the interior of the site and looking at the site from off the site, is enhanced. I also want to note, too, and they show up in the pictures, that there's a very nice line of what appear to be yews or another fast-growing evergreen that line the Cabral property just to the east of it, and also create a good bit of screening for that property. The adequacy of this water, sewage disposal, and drainage, this town water, this is a new Title V conforming septic system to be installed, and a drainage system with 3 catch basins and adequate 2 separate locations of aggregate drainage with leaching chambers will be installed, as Tari explained. The utilities and services are available to the lot. Noise and litter are not an issue. With regard to water quality and recharge volume for coastal and freshwater, this enhanced septic treatment, drainage improvements will limit the inappropriate runoff from the site. So under those criteria, it meets the standards for, the general standards for a special permit, because it indicates that it will not be detrimental to the neighborhood or the town. The commercial regulations, I think, highlight the benefits of this, which clearly outweigh its detriments. The location is in a neighborhood of similar uses, as I already noted. The activity strengthens off-season employment and contributes to diversity of services in the town. The function served by this business supports our primary means of transportation, and it's essential to the community function. Mr. Rugg pointed out to me today, it's something I hadn't really realized, but that in the Hyannis area, there are many, many suppliers. There's auto dealerships and so on and so forth, and these things are much more accessible. But out here on the Outer Cape, this and its local competitor, or the Orleans store, service this network of people who take care of our cars, and it's kind of a testimony to the usefulness of that use, that this site has been dedicated to it since 1974 and has managed to survive as a viable business. The enlargement of this will enable it to continue to function and to support that use. The site design is a marked improvement. While there is topographic change, it's properly engineered and is necessary to use the site. Pedestrian and vehicular traffic and movement onto and off the site is well planned for, and parking is much less visible than it is at present. The exterior building materials are not out of sync with the neighborhood or the town, and the design of the addition incorporates mitigating architectural features. So considering both the general special permit criteria and the commercial regulations, the proposed expansion of the building conforms to the town's regulations very well, and a special permit can certainly be granted for this proposal. I'm happy to address in fact, I intend to address the variance criteria unless it's not a lengthy presentation, and some of the material is worth considering. As was noted earlier, this building location on the lot as the front yard setback was pre-existing non-conforming. When the original subdivision was approved, the front GB setback was 10 feet. It was changed to 25 feet in the annual town meeting of May 1984, and my office happened to have a copy of this, so I can verify that. I could have shown that by coming to the town hall. The subdivision was before that, so it was lawfully pre-existing and non-conforming. The point of that, though, is this lot was laid out and configured before the present parking design requirements were incorporated into the zoning bylaw. The three requirements I went through are sought to be varied. The reason that the project can't conform to those requirements is primarily, well, it is topographical. If the back of the lot was level ground, my calculation is that you would have 5,280 square feet of additional land that would meet the criterion of being 10 feet from the property line and 10 feet from the building. The parking bylaw says that you need 300 square feet for each parking area. That's 3,900 square feet. In my crude approach to this, I felt that you could get those 13 spots out of it and it would conform. But alas, that hill is there. Likewise, the upper elevation of the back of the lot prohibits the egress driveway from crossing at a right angle, at least from the standpoint of visual reasons. You can see if you came at a right angle from where it is, you would be right alongside that telephone pole, which is not good. So this feature imposes a substantial hardship on the property owner in that a business lot of significant size can't be modified to meet present-day requirements. Since 1974, the variety of inventory necessary to keep pace with the types of vehicles that must be supported has expanded substantially. The site has supported it since 1974. The various businesses have always been locally owned and completely in character with Cape Cod. I'm not saying anything about AutoZone. The current facility is increasingly obsolescent for its intended function. So, as to impact on the public good, this ensures that its important use remains on this site with safety and aesthetic upgrades. It does not undercount the intent of the parking design regulations because it's a significant upgrade from current parking design and conforms to the bulk of the design regulations for a parking lot. It's analogous to a maximum feasible compliance criteria which is applied under Title V of the state law when you're designing a septic system to support an established pattern of use. What that does, which is a very sensible procedure, is requires the applicant to conform to the bylaw to the greatest extent that they can. So with all that said, I think if a variance criteria has to be applied, that this satisfies the variance criteria, and I thank you for your patience and attention. We respectfully request the necessary relief to do this expansion.
Are there any questions by any members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, do the wholesale customers come pick up their merchandise here, or is it delivered to
Delivered.
them?
It's delivered.
And how many delivery vehicles does the business have?
Is it 8, Bill?
We normally, we have 5 vehicles that do the bulk of the deliveries, but we have one vehicle that's constantly shuffling back and forth to Hyannis. At least two absolute deliveries a day. We would go, the Falmouth store and the Orleans store meet in Hyannis. They exchange inventories. Falmouth store that we have is 6,000 square feet and 6,000 of wholesale space or under storage, where we stock most of our factory direct orders. The Hyannis store has just about 6,000 square feet, and so they have more adequate inventories than they have enough inventory space to deal with what they have to wholesale and retail, and so it is common to go back and forth. Plus, the distribution center delivers parts on a daily basis to us as well as at night, in order to keep the flow coming into the stores.
Are the vehicles parked on the lot during the day?
The what?
The delivery vehicles parked on your lot?
We hope not to see too many of them there during the day, but they are occasionally there. Usually there's a couple at a time that are there, maybe a loading, or most of the time they're out on the road. They're making runs to Provincetown, they're making runs to all over.
How far do you distribute from here?
All the way down to Provincetown and Chatham, and we don't go into the Yarmouth Dennis area. There is another store in that town that we don't own. So we don't encroach in each other's territories. It's tough to do sometimes, and some customers will overlap. Some of the retails and some of the wholesale customers that don't have permanent stations, backyard mechanics, they'll come in from those areas, but most of the time it's within that. But it's at least twice in the summer, the shoulder months, to Provincetown and back. At least twice. Sometimes it's 3 times in the summer.
Thank you.
Do the employees drive the vehicles home?
Well, manager drives a vehicle home, and the assistant manager has been encouraged to drive a vehicle home as well.
Okay, so you've got 5 vehicles, and then the employees come with their 5 cars, and then drive the 5 vehicles?
Yeah.
Where are those going to park? You have 13 spaces? Are they going to park on the side of the building, on
No,
Baker's
back.
Pond?
We have spaces at the back where the employees were going to park. That's what it is.
So I think the concept, as I understand the concept, is that an employee has a car, and that car takes the place of the van that was parked there. So the employee generally comes in, parks in a spot. I mean, you obviously, there's changeover with regard to it, and there's the area to the, there's not, well, there are deliveries going out on a regular basis. There are not deliveries coming in on a regular basis. They have to obviously be coordinated. But there's kind of maneuvering space over there. So that's generally the way that it works. That photo that I showed you had a bunch of cars parked over there, but in my opinion, on that Saturday, they were parked there because the back was out of commission. You couldn't park back there.
Are there is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone wishing to speak relative or neutral to the application? Let the record reflect that the file has received no correspondence in favor of or in opposition to the application. Do you have anything further, Mr. Landry?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Then we'll close the, excuse me.
One last question.
Yes.
One last point. Were there any meetings or discussions with the butters or whatever about the proposed project?
Mr. Rugg did do that. We specifically went to Mr. Cabral next door because there had been an incident where when the nursery went to to the car wash, he had paved within 10 feet of the property line, and someone in the area complained about that, primarily, I think, because they had been looking at a nursery, and suddenly we're looking at a car wash. So he cut back his 10 feet, and he was spoken to. I think there was as much reaching out as there could be under the circumstances. But no one, had raised any kind of a hue and cry that we're aware of.
Is it,
I had conversations with the three abutters, and they were all pleased that we were doing something with the property. I didn't ask them to do anything specific. I just told them what we were doing, and I got good feedback from them. It was good.
okay, thank you.
Then this application will be closed for the taking of evidence, and my thinking is that we can, and subject to the discussion of the board, treat this and handle it under a special permit. I have reviewed the variance criteria, and we could also approach that. I was a little bit confused because the section numbers from which variance were requested were actually 164-34 relative to parking, not 164-35, which is different. But it occurred to me that if the board is able to make, based on the evidence, sufficient findings under 164-44 for general special permits and 164-38 commercial, that the entire landscape plan and site plan could be merged in those findings, and appropriate relief could be granted to the applicant, which is what I'm proposing to do. I'm in favor of it, in other words. Are there any comments by any members of the board in general, as part of our discussion?
My feelings on this subject?
Yes, you.
Yeah,
I think you should. I think you should weigh in, Mr. Jablin.
All right.
You will not be voting on this as
Okay.
the new associate, but your opinion is valuable.
I viewed the property. I agree it's viable business and valuable to the community. It seems well thought out, the addition, and I believe it would be an improvement to the general area. And the only exception or addition that I would offer would be very clearly marked do not enter signs and arrow signs saying enter here, or traffic management signs, period.
Very well. Mr. Mulligan, you want to weigh in?
Well, just that I think, parking is limited, but I think it's an improvement of what's there now. It's a big improvement of what's there now. The picture indicates the parking sort of a mess there on that particular Saturday, and this gives a flow and a more direction, and I think it's a pickup.
I think the parking's a major improvement, not having it in Nell's Way.
What is the pleasure of the board concerning it attaching a condition regarding the imposition, construction of entry signs or non-entry signs on the curb cut on Baker's Pond Road? Do you think we should attach that to to a grant if we should see fit to do it? Or should we remain silent?
My own thoughts, since I brought it up before, would be it's really in the interest of public safety as well as customers for the business. So I think it's hard to see a downside.
I think it should be added.
Very well.
I mean, I don't think you have any problem with that, do you?
We don't want people coming in from that end.
Yeah.
It's just going to cause potential for an accident and just confusion,
Yeah.
general confusion.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's worth adding.
Very well. Then, Following public deliberation by the zoning board of appeals, a quorum of qualified, members being present and voting based upon the application of 321 R&R LLC, filed September 19th, 2014, based also on the landscape plan titled Napa Auto Parts dated October 30th, 2014, based also upon the profile plans of the construction, and the floor plan drawn pages A1, A2, and A3, entitled Proposed Auto Parts Store Addition for 321 R&R LLC, drawn by Zibrat and McCarthy, and the plan showing proposed building addition and site improvements drawn by Coastal Engineering Company, Inc., dated September 19th, 2014, sheet 1 of 2. Based also upon the approval of the Site Plan Review Committee, I move that the board adopt the following findings of fact. 1. The alteration, reconstruction, extension, or structural change proposed by the applicant will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure and any of its nonconformities or use. According to 164-3C2 of the Orleans zoning bylaw. 2, subject property known as 3 Nell Way is shown as parcel 4019 on Orleans map 46 and is in a general business district area. 3, the present use of the property is the sale of automobile parts and products at wholesale and retail. 4, the proposed use of the property is the same as the present use, although the present building will be expanded principally for additional storage space for parts inventory. 5, the proposed use or change in use will not be detrimental to the established and future character of the neighborhood and will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. 6, the alteration and change will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. 7, the site is adequate in terms of size and suitable for the proposed use. The area of the lot is 24,088 square feet, and the final floor area ratio after the construction would be 23.9% against the allowed 40%. Eight, the proposed use will have no negative impact on traffic flow or safety. The applicant actually proposes to improve traffic flow in an aesthetic and sensible manner by the circulation in counterclockwise direction, the traffic around the building and the
Clockwise.
addition. Clockwise.
Sorry about that.
Around the building and the addition to the building. 10. The proposed use is isolated from and will have no impact on the method of sewage disposal, source of water drainage, or water resources. The site is serviced by town water, and a new conforming Title V system is planned and will be installed. 11, utilities and public services will be adequate for the proposed use. 12, noise and litter will not be increased by the alteration. 13, there will be no adverse impact on groundwater quality and recharge volume and the water quality of coastal and fresh surface water bodies. The application has taken into consideration proper drainage flow on a lot which is otherwise troublesome in its topography. 14, the applicant's store is in a neighborhood of similar uses and, as a matter of fact, consistent with the other uses in the area and neighborhood. 15, the alteration proposes no environmental issues. 16, the commercial activity conducted by the applicant is essential to the town's commercial diversity, services locals and visitors alike through all seasons, and has demonstrated expertise and experience in the business and public safety. 17, site design is adequate for the purpose and scenic views are not affected by the alteration. 18, the application considers the topographic features to the
South.
locus
Yep.
and considers the maintenance of a substantial retaining wall and has increased the buffer from the sideline to the inception of the parking spaces on the easterly boundary. 19, the application deals with an acceptable treatment of vegetation and landscaping on the borders and immediately in front of the store. 20, no excessive glare, noise, or odor is created or enhanced by the alteration. 21, the exterior materials used in constructing the expansion of the building are consistent with and indeed match the present building. Number next in order. One condition is appropriate, that signage be installed on the westerly boundary of the property bordering on Bakers Pond Road to discourage ingress through the curb cut from Bakers Pond Road. That concludes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Very well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Therefore, based on the findings of fact, I move that the board grant a special permit pursuant to sections 164, 3C, 1, excuse me, 3C2, 164-8, and 164-34B3, and 164-44, and 164-38 of the zoning bylaw to run with the land. This special permit is subject to the following condition under the provisions of 164-44 of the zoning bylaw, which conditions have been determined to be necessary to serve the purposes of the zoning bylaw, that the appropriate signage be constructed and installed on or about the curb cut, the westerly boundary of the property on Bakers Pond Road to discourage the ingress of traffic from Bakers Pond Road to the rear of the site. That concludes the motion for granting of a special permit. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. And opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You want any plans?
Mr. Landreth, what shall we do with your prayer for variance?
You can simply, with regard to the prayer for a variance, I would request that it be withdrawn without prejudice. The application be withdrawn without prejudice.
Very well. Then I move that we accept the withdrawal without prejudice of the application for a variance. Is there a second? All those discussion?
Just brief discussion on this motion?
Yes.
I didn't catch this in the first read-through, but is it limited to 2 years and required to be renewable
The variance or the special permit?
under the special permit?
Well, the special permit, I believe, is a 2-year, I mean, you have to exercise it within 2 years.
I was,
If you exercise it within 2 years, then you succeed to all the rights that inhere in the special permit. So we don't have to come and revisit the parking regulations, for example. The relief is good for as, well, it's good in perpetuity. Of course, the condition, if any condition is not met, then, there could be consequences of that, one of which might, in an extreme situation, involve a rescission of the special permit. But
I'm just curious, and I hadn't would have brought this to attention before, but just so, and since we're contemplating whether you wanted the variance or not, under 16434B3, any special permit reducing, this is the last sentence of the main paragraph, reducing the required number of spaces issued pursuant to this section in the case of in the case of education administrator, there's glossing over that fact, it doesn't apply to your nature of your use, so I withdraw my comment.
Okay.
I caught that, so I might as well bring it up now just in case. But.
Well, I hadn't even caught up to the question. The concept is that no new parking is required, and the special permit that covers all the other elements essentially covers the parking, because of the fact that there's no reduction in parking. Somebody has to make a determination as to what the appropriate number of parking spaces would be. So that's where the special permit comes into play.
I think we just did that. The reason that we're we propose to allow, and we'll have to vote, the withdrawal of the variance is that someone, we've got an appeal period here. The decision will be prepared and signed, filed with the town clerk, and if somebody should appeal that, then the applicant come roaring back in and take another whack at it using trying to get a variance. Or if it's another, you need that extra arrow.
Yeah, and at the time of my reason was just in case
Yeah.
I had read correctly or thoroughly that section as the last minute.
But failing an appeal and assuming that the applicant bills in accordance with all the documents that we've considered tonight, that permit's good forever.
Yes, it should be.
So, now, do we have a vote on the, can we have a second on the motion to allow?
I have a second from Rolf.
Rolf, thank you, Rolf. Any discussion, further discussion of the motion to allow the withdrawal without prejudice of the request for variance? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Then the motion carries unanimously.
Make one comment? My employees and my wholesale customers, thank you.
And everybody that drives a car, thanks you.
Very well. Is there any further business to come before the meeting?
Move to adjourn?
Then we'll move to...
Only the comment that I don't have any applications pending.
Oh, got them all
So,
done. This is it for November?
this is it for November.
Okay. All right, then let's move to adjourn.
Second?
Happy Thanksgiving.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.